I wanted to ask you a question about, so you went from West Point into like journalism. So maybe you can explain this. So how did you make that connection between being, your time as a cadet at West Point and then wanting to venture into writing? Like, how did you land on journalism from West Point
Sure.
to Columbia?
Well, I'd been a history major at the academy, and that
Oh,
was, yeah, and it's like the English department just rubbed me the wrong way, like plebe English.
cool.
To me,
Yeah.
it was like this absurd caricature of what a military English instruction would be like. Just so much rote memorization
Hmm.
and very rigid like analysis of lines and poems and stuff, and it just beat all the fun out of it.
Yeah,
Whereas
I
the
can see
history
that.
department was just, yeah, like the history department to me was just so much more fun and freewheeling and encouraging of independent thought. And I was always kind of a news junkie too, because I always heard like newspapers are the first rough draft of history. Um,
Interesting.
and so then
Yeah.
after graduation, I hadn't really, like, they were literally waffling about whether or not to commission me until Sunday of grad week.
Hmm.
Um, and at the end of the day, like it was 99, it was pre-war on terror. They had more people than I knew what to do with. I had a medical condition like narcolepsy, requires, regular medication. They're like, we'll just give him his diploma and let him go. So I really had not made any other plans, because up until a week before, I was like, well, maybe I'm going to a basic course in a couple of months. I don't know.
Yeah.
And then, so yeah, I was really just structureless. I was back like living at home with my parents in suburban Chicago, just feeling like a total loser. And
Yeah.
I went to see The Insider, like the movie with Al Pacino and Russell Crowe.
Right.
And at the end of the movie, you know, uh, Russell Crowe, or sorry, Al Pacino is playing Lowell Bergman, and the Mike Wallace character says to him like about something. He says like, "So does this interest you?" Just asking about some story idea, and he says like, "Everything interests me." And I was like, "That's me." And then in the end credits, like they're like, "Oh, Lowell Bergman is currently a professor of journalism at the UC Berkeley Journalism School." And so I'm like, instantly, like I have a mission. It was,
Yeah.
like I always think of that opening scene of like Apocalypse Now, where like Martin Sheen's like all drunk in his hotel room. And he's like, "I have a
Right.
mission," and like
Yeah.
instantly it's like, all right, I've got a mission, and it's to go to
Right.
journalism school. And so I applied to Columbia, Northwestern, and Berkeley. I may have missed the deadline for getting all my stuff in, because it was like right. I mean, it was like when I looked at the calendars, it was like, all right, this needs to happen now. But I got into Northwestern and Columbia, but I wanted out of Chicago. I wanted back to New York, so went to Columbia. And,
So like that's interesting because I too was also a history major at the academy. I was a military history major, so it's kind of funny hearing that as well. Yeah, a lot of common themes in this conversation. But no, what's really funny hearing or what something that I find really interesting is the fact that I'm sure that there's a lot of carryover with what you've done with journalism and what you've learned while studying journalism at Columbia. So what kind of carryovers did you take from actually even being from a history major to journalism to the creative space? Like what are some things that you've kind of picked up along the way?
Basically figuring out where information comes from, and who's telling you a story and why,
Right.
which is like a level of critical thinking that I hate to say, but a lot of Americans have lost these days. Like they'd rather just trust some meme, not to get too political, but they'd rather just trust some meme that they read on Facebook when they're on the toilet, rather than digging into who's an authoritative source.
Right.
One of my formative experiences in journalism school was you know, they give you beats in like different neighborhoods of the city. And I was down in Crown Heights in Brooklyn, looking for a story. And I was trying to talk to kids about like education and like use, you know, the internet was fairly new at this time. And like,
Oh
I was
yeah.
asking some kid, I was like, so do you go on websites for schoolwork? And he was like, oh yeah, yeah. And I'm like, what do you go on? He's like, oh, like plantsandανimals.com. You know, he's just telling me something like that. And you know, when I'm back at my computer, I like look it up, and of course it doesn't exist. And it occurs to me like, oh, this kid is skipping school. It's the middle of the day. Some grown up is asking him
How it,
questions, and he just wants to get rid of me. So he's
yeah,
just
yeah.
making up something, you know. So yeah, you really realize like everybody has an agenda in talking, and like what's their agenda? What are they trying to accomplish? Can you trust them?